violet, violar. Dos violet, violar. Dos violet, viola que llaman dos violet, violar. Dos violet, viola, eta. Dos violet, viola, botella. Dos violet, viola que llaman dos violet, viola. Give thanks and praise, wonderful dissidents. Thank you for coming back. It's going to be a multiple part installation for me. I'm definitely going to need to break up some of these thought streams and just going to take a few pauses throughout the production just to keep my train on the mini tracks. And a couple updates. Very soon, my episode with Emily Moyer will be broadcasting. I'm so looking forward to it. And it's a two-parter, so I will tease everybody with the juicy stuff that is on the second hour. We went deep. I was very wonderfully welcomed, and it just felt like a conversation with a sister that I needed to meet a long time ago. And yeah, we're very kindred souls. So big love, Emily. Thank you for having me on. And also, Topher, thanks for hooking us up, buddy. I'm glad you set that fire in both of us. So, also, I'm almost at the 4,000 mark. I got a feeling that the shadow aspect, the hidden hand, is out there, keeping the number just under 4,000. But it's all good. It's just a worthy opponent. Let's see, slickdistant.com down below. Got a new playlist on the YouTube channel with a lot of my live streams with other content producers. Let's see, I had a whole list of announcements, but the workload that I want to share is just a little too vast. If anything fell through the cracks, maybe it'll dawn on me as I roll forward. There is a theme that I want to operate through this installation under. And it is the theme of, I want to lockpick the vanguard. When I have the Kuji-un up on the enneagram, this number 7 is the Ritsu. And it translates to the vanguard. And it makes me think of the terracotta warriors in the temple that were covered in Han's purple. That is definitely what all soldiers come together in formation for the vanguard. What was the full? It's somewhere in the record book, but that vanguard, such a fascinating word. A lot of people know why on different levels. There's the public facing side, but some people have a little more in-depth appreciation for these words. There's way plus ultra beyond all that. So that vanguard. Today we call them the avant-garde. And Plato's Republic is a instruction manual on how to deconstruct mythology and how to socially engineer the mentality of the masses to the utmost, to even streamline people's thought patterns into a vastly reductive potential of output. And so the opening lines to the Republic, they get the opening chapter is hailed throughout film, cinema, books, writing, all of the imaginatory realms, and to such a degree that it's not as though everybody is doing it because they're all in the club, right? Okay, let me tell you the pattern. It's an apprehension of our hero. Our hero gets arrested in the beginning. The arrest in the beginning. An ancient translation of eris is actually a certain stillness. And generally, the way we use that phonetic today is as acrimony, is a frenetic. It's percussive, it's impactful. But in fact, once upon a time, the eris was coming to rest. So when you are under arrest, a lot of people on the first layer, they think this is war. We're in Aries. But an experienced warrior actually knows the stillness of engagement. There's a certain stillness to engagement. The tachypsyche, what's the other one? Time dilation. Time dilates when the adrenals pop. And some people can really orchestrate that to their benefit. And I think that kind of person reads Plato's Republic a little different than the rest of the masses. So, the hero being arrested. And there's always a little person. There's always a little person involved in the arrest. And there's always a cloth, some sort of cloth, this little person. So Socrates is rolling down to the paella. It's not paella. But I do love paella. He's going down to the Athenian, I think it's called the pareia, which is, today we would say a parade. It translates to so many things. But it's really a celebration to Athena's best friend who she killed on accident. So everybody would say, oh, it's a holiday to Athena. And you're like, yeah, close. You got to go further. It's her friend that she accidentally killed. And after accidentally killed her, she took on her name and became Pallas Athena. And so once upon a time, there was just Athena. And that personality of her story is different from after she killed her best friend and she took on the mantle. This is her trophy. But it's not a trophy the way we think of trophies. Everything seems to have been inverted to such a vast degree. It's not a thing of pride. She's not like, yeah, look at my best friend I killed. I'm gonna carry her name everywhere. No, it's penance. You know, she wears it to own her mistake. And it's not bragging either. That's the thing. See, we come from a very prideful perspective on these myths. She's not bragging. All right. So the apprehension of a hero in the beginning of the film, the being arrested. Soon after that, now please take these templates and consider their amplification onto other art craft that you've consumed in your life, okay? Because I believe that this is a template of the vanguard, those who would reconstruct mythology for social engineering purposes. So Socrates, thereafter, he goes to the house of his wards, the people who have taken him into custody, and they're going to grill him for the speak. They want the power of compulsion from him. And he goes in and he gives them some information. Whether it was good information or not, it's a lifetime to research. And he goes in and essentially makes a fascinating case for, before, like with any debate or any conversation, you need to define the terms upon which you are speaking. So he very amicably establishes a common ground for the conversation. And one thing that he does is he says, let us take these dynamics of culture and society that is so far away from us where we are speaking right now, and let us amalgamate it onto the wall, onto a very large surface, so that we can make symbols that represent aspects of the individual human experience. And we're going to use this as the analog, as the metaphor, as the magnification, the macro, the as above, so below, all these things. This is the magic he's doing. And let us cast an image of culture, which they really called music, onto the wall and speak of this culture, this community, in the context of the single individual. And the metaphor will become amplified or um, tethered to social constructs and dynamics as well. So, something that I always talk about is the difference between the individual and how the individual is impacted by these symbols and projections, and how our freedom of association is our sympathetic resonance potentia. It's enshrined in the First Amendment, your freedom of association, and there's a lot of power in that. Versus the homunculus. Oftentimes, I'm talking about the homunculus, the collectivism, um, and how fascinating it is that the grand homunculus in a democracy, the grand homunculus, the meeting of the minds, the community, is incredibly thoughtless. It operates outside of reason, and so I believe that Plato was giving the formula for social engineering on the most amazing level. So I want to talk about Plato's wall. Even in the story of the Plato's cave, he's talking about you're down, strapped in a cave, bunch of people strapped in a cave, and all they get is shadows on the wall. Let's see if I can. Let's see. There we go. Shadows on the wall. uh, Shadows on the wall, right? But Socrates in the story is using a wall to cast images on. This just tickles my fancy so much because Athens is the birthplace of graffiti. It's the birthplace of graffiti. And think of how graffiti is like the renegade billboard, you know? It's the renegade billboard. And when I was a kid, I'd see graffiti and I was like, I can't even read that. What's the purpose of putting up symbols that I can't read? Folks, there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. And it's graffiti. And my inquiries into graffiti as a child that are finding the answers I was looking for in a vast and profound way. So another aspect here is the hand drew on the wall. Again, with these little dynamics of art, just feel free to use them as a template for other stories you've heard. I'm talking about Daniel 5:5. Daniel 5:5. That doesn't get translated till Daniel 5 times 5. The translation comes out in Daniel 25. So this disembodied hand on the wall, this hidden hand of the avant-garde, and casting spells on the wall that are the measure of the society. What is it? Mental, tickle, fennel. It's it's a measure of the big picture, amplified onto the king's vision, so that he can understand. It's almost like a weather forecasting, you know, but in an archaic context. So yeah, the hidden hand on the wall. I'm pretty sure Daniel 5:5 could have been easily pulled off with a what do they call it? A camera obscura. You could have done the many tekel many shekel, whatever that story is. You could have done that with a camera obscura, you know. I'm not trying to pull miracles out from under people. I'm just saying that there is a logos for how these things could have, and what they could be telling us is possible. All right, yeah, hand drew, Andrew. The word Andrew is a nod to the artist's XY axis that an artist has to draw to get depth perception to draw you into the picture. So every time you hear the word Andrew, you should be thinking of the, we think, it is a Coptic cross, right? Yeah, it's a Coptic cross. It's the stirrup cross. I think Andrew wanted to be hung
An
upside down
immutable cross.
on the where the land meets the water. It's the stirrup cross of sadomasochism and bondage, but it's also bondage, as in like you sign a contract, you sign on the X. But it also gives depth perception, and so it draws you in. One note: I think that when Socrates is using the wall as a metaphor for the grand homunculus, he also is gaining permission to speak in generalizations and to not be specific. And there's a great amount of loss of accuracy between, okay, let's speak about man in general and how the actual human experience is in the details. And this is state tactical um, um, manipulation. This is state tactical manipulation. The difference between the grand homunculus and the generalization of a homunculus, or getting into the details of the individual who might show up upon special appearance in a courtroom. You have to give special appearance to find that standing. I want to say this. The generalized homunculus that Socrates got permission to speak about vaguely, just for the sake of establishing common ground, to speak metaphorically about the population. I think that is tropical astrology. And the loss of accuracy from the individual, I think that is sidereal astrology. And so when we go through most of our childhood and we look at astrology, that every segment of the sky is 30 degrees exactly, and everything of this is all, this is the even temperament spell, that everybody's born equal. Because in order to go into the realm of fiction, you have to acquiesce to this everybody is equal, but it's like the biggest lie there is. So yeah, I just wanted to say the tropical astrology is even weights and measures, everybody is equal. But sidereal is like, now that's not really how it plays out in reality. And you actually, I think of tropical as like the beginner's class. This is like uh, elementary, middle school, and high school. Somewhere in high school, you get wind that there's actually more details here. There's more to learn here, and you can get into more nuance. And then maybe if that takes, you go to college, you become a real master of the knuckle bones. All right. Also, yeah, this is going to be a long one. It's going to be a long one, y'all. I've learned a fascinating revelation of the enneagram as in regards to the homunculus, unto the masses, unto the mass consciousness, the collectivism where the tide waters are vast and deep. There is a book out there. Maybe I'll pull a graphic if I can get my hands on it, pull up some receipts on this. But there has been a claim that has been made recently that is really fortifying for me, that communism is an envy spiral. Communism is an envy spiral. Or wait, was it socialism? No. I think I would say socialism to communism is right here between the 4 and the 1. 4 is the shadow of envy. And so this drive for communism, I think, resonates very powerfully in the homunculus, not so much the individual, with this line, this drive from envy to the individual, to some high ideal, some perfectionist reformer kind of revolution, you could say, this thread. So in the homunculus, in the masses, this is the thread of idealism. And in the individual, this is the thread of ego. So those two layers of functionality with the Enneagram, just keep them in your pocket, because the same theory says that fascism is a disgust spiral. Fascism is a disgust spiral. And between the envy spiral and the fascism spiral, you could kind of think of these as a pendulum for social engineering. And so I'm putting fascism in the as it does resonate to the number 6 in the largest way. There's a lot of Ignatius Loyalists and a lot of university that sit in this this harnessed disgust spiral that gets inflamed periodically. And right now, we just went from, with the elections, we were in 4 years of an envy spiral. And now we're about to blow up on a disgust spiral. And this loyalty and the loyalists, it harmonizes so much to the immigration situation right now. It's crazy. So the disgust spiral on the number 6, it's blowing my mind. And it made me think, I think somebody said it in my chat, where's capitalism? Right here. Greed, avarice, the observer, with the shadow of jealousy. Mammon. Mammon is the spirit of greed. And so, is liberalism a Leviathan spiral? Is fascism a Belial spiral? And is capitalism the Mammon spiral? These are things to think about. All right, so I just wanted to kind of tickle the underbelly of the social engineering homunculus. And I want you guys to take these concepts and put them in your tool belt, because I do believe these are some of the highest forms of functionality to understand when people are using these super vague ideas and running into debate thinking that their armor is good. These terms have been defined. These terms have been defined, and they can be very useful to have a common meeting of the minds to talk about the dynamics of both the micro and the macro. Yes. All right, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to take a pause. One thing I do want to say about, I just love knowing what kayfabe is, you know? And, okay, so Plato was a wrestler. That's his wrestling name. Plato was a wrestler. It was his wrestling name. Kayfabe is such a revelation of the method. And I think the vanguard uses kayfabe, false acrimony, false energy appearing real. And isn't it so redeeming that the foolishness of the wrestling ring has really lost its glamour, but somehow it stripped the political arena from its potency at the same time. And now it's mano a mano, and we're in a whole new man on man. It's no longer homunculus kayfabe. It's actually individuals. We've gone from tropical wrestling into sidereal wrestling. Think about what I'm saying, y'all. Think about what I'm saying. And the nitty gritty for details is amazing. We are in a labyrinth of like parsimony where people could take anything you say and be like, yeah, but technically, because we have more information than ever. So I just wanted to keep the social engineering functionality of the enneagram. I want to offer that up. Just, sometimes people get in these conversations about these etheric, almost empty, loaded terms. And I just love that there is actually a map for how these dynamics hand off and are interdependent to one another, and have been for a very long time. All right, I'm going to pause because next I'm going to move into nature and some other fun gifts that I care to pay forward. All right, everybody, big love and respect, BRB. Give thanks and praise. All right. The next topic is, I don't even know what to call it, what to categorize it as. Maybe I'll know when I get to the end of my ramble here. I'm going to talk about the Andy Warhol spell. And just kind of threading on this vanguard and these culture creators, the avant-garde, those who determine our artistic priorities. Or maybe we could say those who harness the techne to manage priorities from a very high vantage point. The Andy Warhol spell was, again, let me say this, I'm not talking about one person. I'm talking about the think tanks behind these people. After studying the Greeks, I've fully come to appreciate the potency of these think tanks. These prolific outputters of culture that don't really seem to be bound by human restraints. There are so many authors like that are so prolific, you just cannot believe that they're not a think tank. Starting with Mark Twain. No, not even starting with Mark Twain. But I think a lot of people got the idea of what I'm talking about. Stephen King, he might have an excuse. He might be giving away a secret in his name. Stephen King might have been sniffing cane. But Andy Warhol, we'll just give him the word because what it was, was a diminution of artistic excellence to such a detrimental degree that it turns into Beavis and Butthead and Ren and Stimpy and the Rugrats and all of this just foul foolishness that really puts an interesting spin on taste. They really manipulated the human palate for decades there with all of these diminishing of excellence. And it lays a cover fog for chaos, for relativity and chaos of the utmost potency. But something about this Andy Warhol, Andrew, oh, by the way, right? Remember, Andrew, the Andrew draws you in. This is the X of perspectivalism. It's putting the X on the piece of paper to make depth perception in your art is the Andrew. So this is the hand-drew cross that the artists use to draw you in. And there's something about also the free association of Sigmund Freud, along in stride with the Warhol movement, that art is just bringing your demons out, and that you have no insight into the actual intent of the artist whatsoever. In fact, it seems to be some sort of high blasphemy to interpret the artist through their medium. And in fact, there's a vanity, there's a sick vanity to the projection that it's only what you make of it. That's a sick vanity. I think there's a legitimate transmission into the soul of the artist that people do not talk about. And I'm going to put a footnote right here on the term. Did I write it down? The anxiety of influence. The anxiety of influence. When I did my, I haven't even really leaned into it, but when I did the avatar breakdown, I was talking about free-floating anxiety. And it was interesting to me because, and also Kenneth Anger and his influence behind the scenes through this tarot deck onto future artistic endeavors that are just using the tarot deck as a system of art. But somehow there's this anxiety of influence. But wait, what was that art built upon? And what was that art based upon? And what avenue of information are you drawing on? And something that I did early in the project was to throw the stele of revealing out the window and strictly use these cards as stellar tableaus. That's a lot of how I like to see these cards as constellations, amalgams of segments of the sky. And that's where most of my reward has been. And in fact, I barely have depended on the Crowley instruction manual for what's on here because it's somebody else's homework. So, the anxiety of influence and Andy Warhol, Sigmund Freud, free association. When you go to an art exhibit, you're going to actually only strictly and exclusively see reflections of yourself. And it's only what you bring with you is what is in the art. I don't think that's always the case. And in fact, I think that's a cover fog for a vast, heavy revelation of what the anxiety of influence is really all about. Now, this topic, I'm going to just mention it now, and I will move into it heavily going forward, because I think that as the censorship rolls out, we're moving into, as the fascism rolls out, we're going to be moving into perverse incentivization. The collapsing of empires, there's always perverse incentivization. And so we're going to see bounty hunters going out trying to wrangle up the immigration thing. It's going to be sick. The perverse incentivization is going to be out of control, y'all. So when censorship comes down, a lot of people are going to be freaking out. It's the satanic planet. And people are going to be buzzing on the anxiety of influence. You know, where did you draw your information from? Yada, 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 yada. And it's something that I experience. I got anxiety of influence when I realized that Scooby-Doo was informed by the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck. You know, I had extreme anxiety of influence. Furthermore, when I did the Odyssey wrapping around Antarctica, I find out that there's somebody else's flag in the project, that this is art. This is all art. And there is a grand artist that handed this to me. And for me, it was Alfred North Whitehead. You know, I see Alfred North Whitehead as one of the grand poobah archbishops of the avant-garde. Also Friedrich Nietzsche. Yeah. I put Nietzsche, if I had to, I'd put him on this Magi card, because he's walking on the tightrope of instinct between the one and the two, between the doing and the feeling group. I would definitely put Nietzsche on the magic card if I had to. So that's what I do. Is I think I've turned the tarot cards and the stellar tableaus into our ancestors, or antistic provenance, and it's been very rewarding. But I want to also talk about Toys R Us, you know, the avant-garde, these people, these culture creators. Think of how cunning it is to make the central totem of Toys R Us a giraffe, that the kids can go to Willy Wonka's factory of toys if they just follow the giraffe. And how many G.I. Joes and Star Wars and bazookas and things that go boom for the boys, and cuddly this and that for the girls, and bikes and all the things. And the draft is coming, y'all. The draft is coming. And the real creepy thing about the draft is that the giraffe is a chimera. Chimera is an anagram for America. But the giraffe is a chimera. And it does have a constellation. It's Cameloparditis. And it has a lot to do with Averroes, who is one of the three wise men. I have Aristotle is the number 3, Maimonides is the number 6, and Averroes is the number 9, the Mohammedan wise man. And he uses the giraffe as one of his symbols of philosophy. It's beautiful. And there's a little character on the back of that giraffe, and I think he is a little tiny John the Baptist. So yeah, I'm pretty sure the Jesuit thread through the Averroes mind space is potent, and it has dominion in geometry. The Mohammedan lens is very geometrical. There's a lot of Spinoza up there too. I'm ranting. Toys R Us, y'all. Toys R Us was banalizing the draft. Now, I'm thinking about this, and I'm there's an Andy Warhol inside of me that is like, oh, is this just you turning the things of children into fear? And I'm like, yeah, no, no, it's not. Granted, my generation probably was lined up for the draft. The draft is always needs to be ready to fire up, but it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly with the disgust spiral that's coming. We're moving into the disgust spiral. So I wanted to put that on the table. And then I learned a thing that I mentioned on Emily's show about how the Greeks, they had this word, nature. And the nature of a person was exemplified through their actions. And so that's what, the theater does, is you get to exemplify the natures of the human experience. But it turns out that the Hebrew lexicon did not have this word nature. Instead, they had the word character. They would translate nature as character. And that just rewards the project to the utmost, because every character in our art is conveying a nature. And that nature, I think, is plotted out very soundly with the enneagram. And sure enough, what is the word that... So the Greek word character had a Hebrew word... the Greek word nature had a Hebrew word that translates to character. But guess what it is? What it sounds like? Teva. The 9 Davies. The 9 Davies are right here, correspondent to the muses. I think that's pretty rewarding. I just wanted to share that one. And then I have a couple Twilight reveals that have just been floating in the vernacular lately. EMP attack. This is supposed to strike fear in the hearts of humanity. The EMP attack is bad, but empathetic is not. Empathetic is what we're going to need the most. And the shutting down of the machine might be benefited by an increase in empathy. I just want people to consider how the enantiodromia of opposites running their course is hiding out in Twilight language all over the place, and we shut ourselves down when we don't see it. EMP attack, empathetic. Melchizedek. This tells me that they are astrological priests. This Melchizedek, it's the milky stone. It's the touchstone, the lingam upon which Vestal virgins must constantly lubricate the phallus of fecundity that is our language. The phallus of fecundity is our language, and that's why you don't talk about politics, and that's why you don't talk about religion, is because it is the phallus of fecundity. And our language is perverse. It's perverse, but only with the adult mature lens can we realize that Congress is a fascinating term. All right. Next, I want to talk about the Rorschach test. I'm going to pause. I'm going to break this one up into 3 segments. We're going to go in on Rorschach. Get ready, y'all. The conflagration of objective and subjective. It is a worthy Gordian's knot. Anybody who has studied Spinoza and read his glossary of terms, you'll realize that it is very easy to flip these concepts with just the right amount of vertiginous reasoning. But yeah, we're going to talk about Rorschach, and we're going to delve into that objective, subjective, free association. It is what you make of it. Blame yourself for everything spell. All right. Bless y'all. Big love and respect. All right. Wish me luck, y'all. Wish me luck. Very, very fascinating thing. In this manufactured age of prophecy, the Yashuras versus the Devis seem to be a very potent line in the sand, and it circumvents the Abrahamics. It doesn't discard them completely, but it puts our priorities way back in time. Excuse me, the Yashuras versus the Devis. Oh my goodness, excuse me again. I believe that the Devis constitute the nine. I know that they do. I ask myself, where are the Yashuras here? Where are the Yashuras in this? Are the Yashuras the angels? Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel? In the Hornavian groups? Are those the Yashuras? And why do they have to be intrinsically acrimonious? Valid question. I don't have answers. But this dividing line between the Devis and the Yashuras, maybe it's a false dichotomy of sorts. Maybe it's a false dichotomy of sorts. I definitely think of Jesus, and I think of insurance, and I think of holding the rites of passage in the afterlife over the heads of humanity at large. And that seems to be in the hands of the Yashuras. This death hostaging, the hostaging of death. Even this aspect of taking the placenta as a down payment, that if you do, Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Dum, and Scrappy-Doo, if you act right, then you get your placental retirement. Your retirement is the purple garment of the Christ, and you become a king, and now you can live on like royalty, and maybe we'll give you a noble place in the burial plots, and we won't talk shit about you when you're dead. All of that really kind of lands in the lap of the Ashuras. And Elan is a French word. It means the vitality of Dionysus. Clay Shaw described JFK on the record. Clay Shaw, the only one persecuted in the JFK killing. Clay Shaw, he described JFK as Elan. This was like a kind of a flip of the hair, Frenchy French flip of the hair. Elan is Dionysian vitality. There's a lot going on. They are waging wars in ancient energies, folks. And I'm not sure if I'm lucky to have a clue. So don't let me place your decision on one side or the other. I'm prepared for the Davies to be the utmost of evil and the Ashuras to be the good guys. I just note that there is a dichotomy here, and it's coming up in a major way. I guess I forgot to mention quite a few things. Turns out, statistically, India has the largest population on the planet now. India has taken the lead in the highest population. They've outdone China officially. India's on the rise, y'all. These Devis, these Tivas, these characters, these natures are perceivable. There is an ability to perceive their ramifications on your life as an individual, on your family, on your community, on the state, and on the masses. And Rorschach, man. Where are we? All right. Rorschach. somebody's brought to my attention. Big love and respect. Thank you so kindly. Appreciate all of the insight that I get from my community. A lot of what I try to magnify and pay forward comes from a total treasure trove. My net worth is infinite. So I just wanted to magnify the people who support me, to the utmost. The Rorschach images have come onto the radar, and I see a lot of Andy Warhol fuckery with what is objectively beautiful versus the free association of drawing out your shadow. And the Rorschach test is highly controversial for this exact reason. It's not to be done alone. And it's also, not necessarily very admissible in court. There's so much willy-nilly flim-flam around it. And for these cards to be coming through in the Rorschach test is telling me that there is an objective labyrinth to the diagnostic state tactical Emmanuel, and that there is kind of an off-gassing of society that everybody's going to have a come to Jesus moment, and some people are going to handle it different than others. Some people are going to have a hypotheosized to Jesus moment, and they might need locked up because they have their diagnostic state tactical Emmanuel delusion. And it is anticipated that people will over-associate to these heroes. Rorschach is a character in The Watchmen. The opening scene to The Watchmen, it takes place on Aleister Crowley's birthday, same day that I popped open the screw tape letters last couple weeks. Opening scene is Aleister Crowley's birthday. I can't even get past the first chapter because it's so steeped in tarot symbology. But Rorschach, he goes into a crime scene and he gets out a coat hanger to pop open a closet and find a hidden compartment, a plus ultra in the back. And it's all tarot cards throughout. They're flashing these tarot cards all throughout. And I want to go back to my aunt. I have an aunt who's a Wiccan priestess. And when I told her that I'm finding tarot cards in cinema and that it seems nefarious to give the population a tarot card reading without telling them that's what they're participating in. But with capitalism, nope, it's your own fault. You agreed to pretend. You paid in advance, So you agreed to the terms of the conditions of going into this initiatory process and finding out that there is objective meaning to the symbols behind what was told to people tells me that there's a hidden hand here moving behind the scenes and pulling the strings on people's vices and virtues to integrate or disintegrate. And because people agreed to take the passive role in theater, you're literally giving up your oils, you're giving up your volition, your votive offering, you're allowing somebody else to steer your imaginative principle for that time. And while you're in that passive state, these egregores are moving things around in the subconscious. Now, I hold place for the subconscious to be available through your waking day. And a lot of what's embedded into the subconscious then is articulated in your unconscious when you go to sleep. I see it as literally, in my mind, it's like X and a Y axis. Hope I got that right. X, Y, axis. The subconscious is everybody through their day. If somebody's telling a story but it gets interrupted, and you don't even go back to think about what was the point of that story. Well, when you're in your dreams, something about that story will fulfill itself. And so when you're going into theater, when you're pretending, there's so much being embedded into the subconscious. And what Chance and I do in the demystifying process is we extract infinite symbolas. What's the words? Synthemata. In the beginning of the Greek cosmology, the world was created with divine symbols sent out. Now, they're synthemata. I think those synthemata are being orchestrated very craftily, and at varying degrees of potency behind the curtain of our subconscious. In the Rorschach test, popping off with the shapes, these relation shapes, all of these relation shapes is vastly profound, beyond measure. And I guess I just want folks to know that I'm not pulling this out of my own wazoo. People have written about how to construct these stories and orchestrate the vices and the virtues. Our last presidential run was double vice press. Was a double vice press. Joe Camel, white cigarette, coffee in the morning, cigarettes and coffee. Kamala Joe pressing the vices. It's amazing how their egregoric words find their way into our mouth. Not what comes out, or not what goes in, but what comes out that defileth the man. Vice management is so profound. And John D. Vance is taking the stage, and he's taken the helm of the vanguard. We are about to go through a disgust spiral like none other. It's so profound. I had a thought the other day. Forgive me this thought, but I was thinking about how, if gay dudes will never be with any woman, then married men are coming in second place to them. Gay dudes versus married men. Think about it. Married men are like, no, you're getting it all wrong. It's about finding the one, and stay loyal to the one. Gay dudes are like, no, I'm almost with you. I'm with you all the way up until the one. And it's like, whoa, they're actually making a move for the same title to disregard the entire female race. The disgust spiral is going to be off the chain, y'all. It's going to be off the chain. I heard a guy ranting about going back to Kentucky because he's made money and now he's successful. He was in the military. All of his homies think he's gay because he's successful. And he doesn't even want to be back in he's got to move because somehow being successful is automatically Pausanias. Read the symposium, y'all. Pausanias. These gatekeepers. All right. Yeah. I guess I didn't really Rorschach out very much. Rorschach, primary, one of the principal images is totally this Fool card, and it's got a lot of Cthulhu. But yeah, the Mouth of Hell weave. Turns out there's a super potent Fool card. Thoth deck Fool card in the Rorschach tests. Art card. Popping off in a couple different images. I'll just flash these up. Each image has a name, and it does have associative correspondences. It's like does anybody remember Ghostbusters intro scene where he's holding up flashcards for two students and testing their psychic ability? I forget the name of those cards. but he's basically holding the card up and to some doofy kid and a beautiful female college student, and the doofy kid is getting every card right, and he's even though he gets it right, he shocks that dude. And then when the girl guesses, she gets it wrong every time, but he's like, "You're amazing," and then he's angling. But think of that. That is exactly what college is. They cipher out real talent. They cipher out the real talent, and punitively. The Rorschach test has somehow found its way into a great many of these cards. Now, it's not a complete system. That's the other thing. It doesn't lock perfectly into place. But a great many of the cards from the Rorschach test are right here. And of course, Rorschach is a character on from the Watchmen, and there is one of the schizophrenickest of anagrams with Rorschach and Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche. So, all right, I just wanted to share some revelations that these relationships of these stellar tableaus have been embedded into not just our art, but also have infiltrated into the psychological profiling system at large. When I studied the Enneagram, I was like, damn, is this my social credit score? And what's amazing is I did the Enneagram through questionnaires. I actually took different questionnaires and had to intuit for myself which one resonated the most with my personality type. I kind of land up here in the number 1, 2, and then, on my down days, I'm a 9. But what's amazing is there's another way to get your Enneagram score. A lot of people just reduce their birthday to 1 digit. And sure enough, this is called the life path number, and it seems to resonate with your score on the Enneagram, which is fascinating. And many people, I've had at least 6 people tell me, yep, life path, Enneagram test gets me the same result, which means, and I'm not saying this is true, I just want people to consider, that means that each day of the year, let's just say theoretically, today sums up to a 4. Everybody born today is going to be a 4. Tomorrow's a 5. Day after that is 6. All the babies on these days are landing in these harmonic correspondences. I don't believe this, but I do know that it is a potential claim that comes out of Enneagram work. And that is profound because it is your date of birth. That is the information that influences you in a courtroom. That is so wild. And what happens when you stop associating with the gate of entry? What happens when you actually claim your fertilization date? What happens? I wonder. There is no witness. There is no witness for that magical moment, for the zinc chronicity of your true source. That question as to your fertilization date has perfect resonance with Milton's Paradise Lost. When Lucifer is in heaven still, he starts asking the other angels, hey, you're an angel. We all have perfect knowledge, right? Yeah, perfect knowledge. Do you remember how you got here? Whoa, nobody asked me that before. And he starts a revolution. Milton's Paradise Lost came out the same year as the London fires, 1666, when they launched the prize law, the lawyers, the piracy, the Stamp Act that was celebrated on November 5th on the Pope's night. The Stamp Act was revolted against on November 5th. The Stamp Act, the impression. Machiavelli's entire project was called his Interpresa, his enterprise. All right. I think that the 1666 prize law event is about to take place in the immigration crisis. We are repeating history in vast and profound ways. But the hidden hand that writes the script, it has a pattern. The Greek word for paradigm is basically a multifaceted geometric form. A multifaceted geometric form is the word for paradigm. So through this paradigm, I think we see a great amount of insight into the vanguard that presumes to engineer the masses using a generalized tropical uh, uh, map. But it is when we demand more accuracy, we demand more acknowledgement of the minutiae of life. That is the sidereal revolution, and it is a maturity of thought. Big love and respect, everybody. I'm not trying to scare. I'm just trying to add context. And too much context at once can be a lot to take in. All right. I hope everybody has lovely family meals over the holidays. Don't let Arato come to the table. Don't let Arato into your symposium. Just let her sit in the backdrop and sublimate for her sake. Yeah, be careful with these conversations, y'all. All right. Big love and respect.